Kofi Adamako was a well-known and very wealthy businessman who owned a chain of hotels. A young and extremely attractive bachelor of about 30, he graced the covers of popular magazines. Many socialites dreamed of him and did everything they could to win his favor, but he seemed to think only about work. He rarely attended any events, mostly focusing on his business. Each year he increased his capital, becoming an even more desirable catch. Kofi was perfectly content with his situation. He lived in spacious apartments on the top floor of a massive penthouse in the city center, where an elderly maid cleaned every day. She did the laundry, cooked excellent meals, and took care of his everyday needs. When he returned from work, he would sit in his favorite chair by a wall-sized window, enjoying drinks while watching the evening city lights. Kofi often read books in the evenings, a secret passion he never mentioned in interviews. He believed that books made him who he was, because the stories he devoured as a child inspired him to dream bigger. Kofi came from a poor family with 2 sisters and a younger brother. His love for adventure novels fostered a passion for travel. He embarked on his first journey at 14, hitchhiking with his best friend to a neighboring city. They stayed overnight in a modest hotel, and it was then that Kofi realized how wonderful it was that there were hotels where travelers could rest. He started imagining his own hotel projects, designing various unique hotels in his mind. He asked his mother to buy him a sketchbook, where he began drawing his projects. He kept the sketchbook carefully in his desk drawer, showing it only to his best friends, who admired his imagination. Finally, Kofi had the opportunity to share his ideas at a school conference. The teachers and the school principal appreciated his project and advised him to pursue a career in design and architecture. None of his family believed he could make his plan a reality and get a scholarship, but Kofi worked diligently, often staying up late with his textbooks. He knew that only perseverance and determination would help him achieve his goal, and indeed he succeeded. He was admitted to the architecture university in the design faculty. His parents couldn't believe it, but they were very happy and proud of their son. Kofi threw himself into his studies. It was then that he met Ayana, a beautiful tall girl with black hair. She seemed like a gray-eyed angel to him, and Kofi fell madly in love with her. With his scholarship money, he bought flowers and chocolates and took Ayana to the cinema and theater. The girl condescendingly accepted his courtship. She came from a very wealthy family and studied in the paid department. Kofi completely lost his head and even forgot about his studies for a while. However, for Ayana, his love was just a game. When she grew tired of pretending, she stopped answering his calls and started dating one of the most popular guys in the faculty, a rich and arrogant macho who was the object of many girls' dreams. Kofi's heart was broken, and he vowed to do everything possible to become rich and prove Ayana wrong. "I swear she'll regret it when she finds out how great I am," he said to his best friend, who also studied on a scholarship like Kofi. His friend just nodded, not believing it was possible. However, Kofi kept his word. He graduated from university with honors and was immediately offered a good job. One of his favorite professors put in a good word for him. The company where Kofi started working was one of the leading construction companies in the country, which collaborated with other countries. Over the course of 2 years, Kofi traveled a lot for work, gaining new experiences, valuable contacts, and expertise. After his contract expired, Kofi left the company that had taught him everything he needed and started his own business. Initially, it was very difficult for the young man, and he was even ready to give up, but the thought of Ayana, to whom he had vowed to prove himself, often prevented him from doing so. Finally, Kofi's perseverance paid off, and his business began to thrive. He started collaborating with new business partners, and together they launched their first major project, constructing a glass hotel on the roof of a skyscraper in the city center. Then there were other interesting ideas they brought to life: a ship-shaped hotel, an octopus-shaped hotel on the seashore, and a hostel inside an airplane. Many of these projects originated from Kofi's sketchbook, which made him very proud. This is how he became a wealthy businessman admired by many young beauties, though he had little interest in them. Adamako did not intend to stop there. He wanted to bring new ideas to life and travel the world. One evening, as Kofi was sitting in his favorite chair with a book, his business partner Thabo called. They were the same age and communicated like best friends. They used to dine together often and spend weekends in interesting places. But then Thabo got a girlfriend named Ama, and he began spending most of his free time with her. This didn't bother Kofi at all. He took such things philosophically. "Listen, brother, we have a chance to reach a new level and make good money," Thabo said, as usual, without greeting. He always got straight to the point, considering formalities a waste of precious time. How? Kofi immediately engaged. For him, business had long become an exciting game in which he would never pass up the chance for a new upgrade. One of the major foreign businessmen, Sefu Juma, is interested in our hotels. He wants to build something similar in his country. Moreover, he is extremely intrigued by your imagination and would like to collaborate with us on a long-term basis to create a couple more unique projects. However, after studying his history, I can confidently say that if he is satisfied, he won't stop there. So as you understand, brother, this is a big fish. We can't miss this opportunity. Excellent, Kofi replied. Did you tell him we're in? Thabo hesitated for a moment. That's the thing, brother. There's a catch here, he finally said. What? I'm sure we can solve any issue. Thabo cleared his throat. It's very delicate, he began. Sefu Juma has a fiancée. I'm very happy for him, Kofi smiled. And he is very, very jealous, Thabo concluded. Kofi was momentarily stunned, not expecting this twist. What do you mean? He asked. As his assistant confidentially told me. Thabo explained, Sefu Juma has a tradition for business to go well. He periodically meets with his business partners. From what I understand, this happens almost every week. Oh heavens, Kofi groaned. Where will I find the time? Yes, Thabo nodded. And that's why Sefu is very interested in each of us attending the business dinners he organizes with a girlfriend, better with a fiancé, even better with a wife. Kofi laughed. As for me, everything is clear. Next week I'm going to propose to Ama, Thabo confessed sincerely. But what about you, an incorrigible bachelor? Kofi thought hard. Do you have anyone in mind? Thabo asked cautiously. Not yet, but I will, Kofi quickly replied. Business always came first for him, and if he needed a fiancé, he would get one as soon as possible. Excellent. Then I'll tell Sefu that you'll come with your beautiful dark-haired, blue-eyed friend, Thabo said with a laugh. The next morning, the first thing Kofi did was contact his assistant. I need you to find me a fiancé, he said without any preamble. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Excuse me, Mr. Adamako? The poor girl asked. Find me a fiancé, Kofi repeated. This needs to be done by the weekend. He hesitated for a moment, as if wavering, then added, she should be a beautiful girl with long dark hair and blue eyes and preferably poor. Just a girl looking for a job who doesn't aspire to be with a famous and wealthy businessman. Additionally, she should be well-mannered, educated, and articulate. That's all. The assistant was silent for a while again. But where will I find such a girl? She finally asked. Use all your connections and imagination, Kofi replied and hung up. Soon he received a message from Thabo on his phone. Sefu Juma is expecting us for dinner at 7 on Saturday evening, Magnolia Restaurant on Central Avenue. How's it going with the fiancé? Kofi quickly typed a reply. Excellent. The fiancé is in progress. On Friday morning, the assistant called to inform him that she had found several suitable candidates in her opinion. Do you want to meet them personally to understand who you'll be dealing with, Mr. Adamako? She asked. Kofi decided it was necessary. He had to make a choice and at the same time brief the chosen girl. He told the secretary he would be in the office in an hour. Please invite the candidates you selected by that time. Exactly an hour later, Kofi was taking the elevator to his office. For some reason, his heart was pounding, but he managed to calm it down. After all, he was not expecting dates but business interviews, even if with potential fiancés. Finally, the elevator reached the 12th floor where Kofi's office was located. He entered the reception area, and the assistant said that the first girl, Miss Okoro, was already waiting for him. Nodding, Kofi entered his office and saw a girl with long dark hair braided into a plait. She was wearing a gray suit, a jacket under which a white blouse peeked out, and a long skirt. Black shoes with low stable heels completed the strict outfit. The girl looked at him, and Kofi noted that the assistant had meticulously met all his requirements. His potential fiancé had blue eyes, He decided to make sure the girl could hold a conversation and spoke to her. "Miss Okoro, it's a pleasure to meet you. I am Kofi Adamako." The girl stood up and they shook hands like true business partners. In the process, Miss Okoro blushed deeply, which in turn embarrassed Kofi. "Now I will briefly introduce you to the matter at hand, and then ask a few questions, if you don't mind," he said quickly to hide his discomfort. The girl nodded. They sat down in chairs opposite each other, and Kofi explained the nature of the job she would be expected to do. Hearing his words, the girl raised her eyebrow for a moment, then her face returned to a calm and inscrutable expression. "And now, if you don't mind helping me for a decent fee, we can proceed to a short interview." The young lady nodded again. "It feels like she's mute," thought Kofi. Nevertheless, he began asking her questions about her current occupation, education, and favorite activities. Before answering, Miss Okoro took a long time to gather her courage, but once she started, she couldn't be stopped. Listening to her torrent of speech, Kofi felt disappointed. The girl stuttered. That's why she was hesitant to say a word. The man realized when Miss Okoro finished, he thanked her politely and said he would call if the decision was favorable. The girl walked out, and Kofi invited the next candidate. She was a very attractive girl, but her cold manner of communication put the man off. The third candidate was also beautiful but too tall for him. Kofi didn't want to look ridiculous next to his bride. The fourth girl seemed too plain to him, the fifth too naive and silly. In the end, Kofi didn't choose any of the candidates. Feeling deeply frustrated for wasting so much time, he went out to dinner in a restaurant. The man couldn't forget that he needed a bride like air and consciously glanced around for a suitable candidate. There were many attractive girls around, but Kofi didn't dare approach any of them. He didn't want to make a fool of himself. If the press finds out, they will laugh at me, he decided. Moreover, this whole charade would quickly reach Sefujuma. That would be a complete failure. With these gloomy thoughts, Kofi finished his cold dinner and went home. The next day, he woke up early, restless. He paced back and forth, thinking about where to find an unfortunate bride. A message notification sounded. Thabo had written to Kofi again. "I hope you've settled the matter with the girl. Juma was expecting both of us," read the message. Kofi didn't reply, deciding that if worst came to worst, he would say he was sick and simply not go to the dinner. He took a shower, got dressed, and went into the city for breakfast. Leaving his car in the parking lot, the man walked towards his favorite cafe, where they served very tasty French toast and croissants in the mornings. On the way, he suddenly noticed a public library, and remembering that he had no new books, decided to go inside. Of course, Kofi hadn't used libraries for a long time. All the books were ordered by his assistant, but because of all the fuss with the bride, the businessman had completely forgotten to send her a new list. This meant he was left without books for the weekend, which was like death to Kofi. He really loved to read. Moreover, due to the absence of a bride, it seemed he would have to spend tonight at home. Of course, Kofi could have gone to any bookstore and bought the necessary copies, but the sight of the library suddenly evoked long-forgotten childhood memories. It was nostalgia that drew him to the heavy doors, behind which lived thousands of stories. Kofi pulled the door open and inhaled the unique scent of books with pleasure. He once again felt like a child standing on the threshold of new, unforgettable adventures. Entering the hall, Kofi climbed the wide white staircase and walked into a room filled with many bookshelves. He started moving slowly along them, looking at the spines, completely forgetting about breakfast and other worries. The man was so engrossed that he didn't immediately hear a young girl in round glasses call out to him. Realizing that the new visitor hadn't heard her, she approached closer and repeated her question. "Are you looking for something specific?" the girl asked. Kofi started and looked at her. The girl had long dark hair, blue eyes, and a sweet smile. Zuri Mbali read the badge on her white shirt. Kofi involuntarily looked her up and down. She was elegant and slim, wearing a short pleated skirt, funny white knee socks, and heavy army boots. The businessman began, completely forgetting why he had entered the library. The girl smiled patiently, waiting for him to continue. "I was looking for books," Kofi said. "Oh, that's wonderful. You've come to the right place. We have many," the girl joked sweetly. "Maybe you have specific preferences. Kofi couldn't focus on the conversation. All his thoughts were consumed by the upcoming dinner. What if I asked this lovely librarian to be my date for tonight? I wonder how she will react, he thought tensely. He felt himself sweating all over. Oh, why wasn't he Thabo? Thabo would immediately use his charm to win the girl over and easily take control of the situation. Kofi was different. He always found it hard to meet new people. It turned out that even now, as a wealthy businessman, it was still difficult for him. I love reading philosophical books, Kofi finally managed to say. Wonderful, Zuri smiled. Then let me guide you to the section where Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato are eagerly waiting for you. With these words, she walked lightly along the shelves and Kofi barely kept up with her. How does she walk so fast in those heavy army boots? He wondered. Finally, Zuri led him to the shelves with hefty volumes on philosophy. Here you go, choose whatever you like and I won't disturb you. With that, she went to her desk and Kofi couldn't help but glance at her slender figure. He pretended to be choosing a book while desperately thinking about how to make the strange proposal that was swirling in his head. Finally, he picked the first book he saw and approached her. Ah, Cicero, an excellent choice, Zuri smiled broadly at him. Are you already registered with us? Kofi shook his head. All right, then I'll take a blank form, and I'll need your documents. Kofi put down the book and took his driver's license out of his pocket. However, before handing it over, he looked intently at the girl. She raised her eyes in surprise, feeling his gaze. Do you need something else? She asked. A special book that's not on the shelves? No, it's not quite that, Kofi admitted. Or rather, it's not that at all. He got confused and felt himself blushing. Then what is it? Zuri asked, slightly furrowing her brow and getting ready to listen attentively. Kofi took a deep breath. I need your help, but it's not the usual kind. I'd like to invite you to dinner. The girl's eyebrows went up. But it's not a date, Kofi quickly added. Zuri laughed. Then what is it? Do you want me to read you poetry? No, it will be a dinner with my business colleagues, the man admitted. Everyone will be there with their girlfriends and fiancés, and that's what it is, Zuri guessed and quickly finished for Kofi. And you have no one. Exactly, he nodded with relief. Zuri thought for a moment. And when is this dinner? She asked. Tonight, Kofi replied. His heart skipped a beat. He was afraid she might be busy. But Zuri smiled again. Strangely enough, I am completely free this evening. Kofi felt relieved and very happy. Great, he smiled. He inadvertently looked Zuri over again. Just, do you have it? Was again terribly awkward for him to say it out loud, but the girl guessed everything again. An evening dress? She asked. Kofi exhaled and nodded. I think I can handle that, Zuri nodded. If you need to buy something, I'll cover it, Kofi quickly said. Here's my business card. Just send me the necessary amount in a message, and I'll transfer the money. Zuri took the business card and glanced at it. At that moment, Kofi's phone rang, so he didn't notice how the girl's face darkened in an instant. It was Thabo calling. Kofi moved towards the bookshelves and answered the call. Well, brother, you didn't reply to my message. Did you manage to find a bride or not? Thabo, everything is fine. Kofi answered quietly. I will be with you in the evening. Why are you whispering? Thabo was surprised. I'm in the library, Kofi replied, and without waiting for a response, hung up. When he returned to Zuri, she had already filled out the form. She handed it to him for his signature. At that moment, there was not a trace of a smile on her face. She seemed to be remembering something intently. So, we're meeting at the restaurant in the evening, or should I pick you up? Kofi asked. Oh, that's not necessary, Zuri replied. I'll take a taxi. Write down my number. Kofi nodded and entered the number she dictated into his phone. Then he took the book from the table and said, I will send you the restaurant address and dinner time in a message. Zuri nodded reservedly in response. Kofi headed for the exit with a strange feeling that something had changed about the girl, but what exactly? He felt that the warmth had suddenly been replaced by coldness and the friendly smile by strictness and even severity. But what could be the reason? Perhaps the girl just needed to get back to work. Kofi shrugged. In any case, the task was done. He had found a suitable bride and could now go to dinner with Sefujuma without worries. So why fret over trifles? If Zuri didn't smile at the end, it didn't mean he did something wrong. Calming himself with this thought, Kofi decided to forget about the last unpleasant feeling and focus on the upcoming matters. He finally had breakfast, then called his personal stylist and scheduled a meeting for the evening. He had to look his best, he decided. Closer to noon, he received a message from Zuri. She sent him a photo of a beautiful evening dress. It was bright red, and Kofi involuntarily imagined how good it would look on her. However, when he saw the price tag, the man coughed. The dress cost a fortune. Despite being more than wealthy, Kofi never allowed himself to throw money around recklessly. Most often, he bought the most ordinary things, went to trivial cafes, and felt perfectly fine about it. Thanks to his poor childhood, he knew the value of money all too well. Of course, sometimes he had to buy expensive items to look respectable in the eyes of business partners, and today was one of those occasions. So he transferred the required amount to the account Zuri indicated in the message and later paid for equally expensive shoes and a handbag. This girl decided to prepare thoroughly, the man thought. At exactly 7 in the evening, Kofi parked his car at the Magnolia restaurant. He got out of the car and glanced at his reflection in the bright window of a nearby store. He was wearing a light suit, a white shirt with a bow tie, and leather shoes. Everything fit him perfectly. Kofi adjusted his expensive watch on his wrist and headed to the entrance. Thabo and his girlfriend Alma were already waiting for him at the table. Both looked more than splendid. Alma was wearing a green velvet dress with an open neckline, and a pearl necklace adorned her neck. The girl had gathered her reddish-brown hair into an intricate hairstyle at the nape, so that several wavy strands fell across her face. "Hello, friends," Kofi greeted the young man and woman. "Hello, brother," Thabo greeted him. "You look great. But why are you alone?" "My bride will arrive by taxi any minute," Kofi replied. "And where are Sefu and his dear lady?" "They're delayed," Thabo replied. "There's a small traffic jam at the entrance to the city. Juma wrote that he will be here in 30 minutes. Kofi sat at the table next to Thabo, took out his phone from his pocket, and texted Zuri. "Are you on your way?" She replied, "Yes, I'll be there in 5 minutes." "Great. I'll be waiting at the table," Kofi responded and put his phone away. Thabo said something to Alma and then turned to him. "Listen, brother, in our business dealings, everything has always been clean, right? We haven't broken the law or anything like that," he asked anxiously. "As far as I know, no. But why are you thinking about this now?" Kofi wondered. Thabo nervously tapped his fingers on the table. "I heard that Juma is very picky about such things. He himself is extremely honest and demands the same from his colleagues and partners. If our company has ever been involved in any dubious dealings, he will immediately refuse to cooperate." Kofi thought for a moment, trying to recall anything. "No, I've always tried to conduct business as properly as possible. Unless there's something I don't know." Thabo nodded. "Then I think everything will go perfectly." "Of course, unless your fiancé decides to ditch you," he laughed. But Kofi was not in the mood for jokes. He was looking at a couple slowly approaching their table. He had only seen the man in photographs before, and it was Sefu Juma, a well-known businessman and their potential business partner. He was a tall, middle-aged man in his 50s. His smooth bald head shone under the lights, and his stylish checkered suit fit him perfectly. Juma carried himself with great confidence. Following him was a rather tall young woman with black hair and big eyes with long lashes. A blue silk sheath dress accentuated her slim figure, and silver jewelry matched her light gray eyes beautifully. Kofi stared at Juma's companion, not believing what he saw. He undoubtedly knew her very well. Sefu's companion was Ayana, the same woman who had once broken Kofi's heart at university. Now he understood why Juma was so jealous of his partner. This woman had always been flighty. When the couple approached the table, the men stood up to greet Sefu. Ayana gave Kofi a languid look and extended her hand for a kiss. He shook it somewhat mockingly, unsure if Ayana had recognized him as she put on an indifferent expression. "In any case, everything between us is long in the past," Kofi thought. "Glad to see you all in this beautiful place," Sefu Juma said good-naturedly. "My respects, Thabo Ayama, Kofi." "Oh, Kofi, why are you alone? Where is your fiancé?" "Thabo said you would come to dinner with a lovely blue-eyed angel." Kofi blushed, realizing that seeing Ayana had made him so nervous that he completely forgot about Zuri. Collecting his thoughts, he was about to open his mouth and say that his partner would be there any minute when suddenly he heard a soft voice. The blue-eyed angel has already arrived. Everyone, including Kofi, looked up. Zuri was standing at the table. She wore a modest dark blue dress and simple black shoes. Her hair was neatly tied in a bun at the nape of her neck, and she wore long, shiny earrings. Despite the obvious simplicity of her outfit, she looked very good. However, Kofi expected a completely different effect. Why didn't she come in the gorgeous red dress I bought? He thought. Nevertheless, he stood up and put his arm around Zuri. She exuded coldness, but Kofi had no time to think about it. He seated Zuri next to him and smiled at everyone present. "This is Zuri, my fiancée," he said. The girl smiled with dignity. "Oh, she is indeed lovely." Despite her rather restrained attire, Sefu commented. "I'm not used to luxury," Zuri replied. "Commendable, commendable," Juma responded. Kofi smiled awkwardly. He didn't understand why Zuri acted this way, but he knew that the only thing he could do was join the game, the rules of which no one had explained to him. Thabo was watching him intently, and Kofi noticed that he also didn't understand anything and was therefore worried. Adamako tried to reassure him with a look, but he wasn't sure if it worked. The waiter approached and everyone started ordering. Ayana ordered shrimp and champagne. Juma supported her, and Thabo and Ayama also placed their orders. "What will you have?" Zuri asked Kofi. "I think I'll go with plain rice," the girl replied seriously. "Plain rice?" laughed Sefu. "Kofi, are you not letting your fiancé eat properly?" Kofi blushed, feeling embarrassed. "No, I would never." He caught Ayana's mocking glance and got completely flustered. "Oh, he has nothing to do with it," Zuri said with regal calm. "I just watch my figure and try not to eat much after 6. Sefu laughed good-naturedly as if he had heard a funny joke. "I like this girl," he said. Thabo joined Juma in laughter, and the others started to smile too. "She's still a child," Ayana said patronizingly, and Kofi felt irritation. Zuri said nothing. The waiter brought drinks and light snacks. A business conversation started at the table, which the women listened to but did not participate in. When the men had discussed work matters, Ayana turned to Zuri. "So when do you and Kofi plan to get married?" she asked. Zuri shook her head. "We haven't set a wedding date yet," she said. "Oh, but why not?" "We're not in a hurry," Kofi quickly answered for Zuri. "Yes, you've always been quite slow," noted Ayana and suddenly winked at Kofi. Sefu looked at his friend in surprise. "How do you know that?" he asked, looking at Ayana suspiciously. "My sister went to university with him," the girl lied. This unsettled Kofi. Ayana hasn't changed a bit, he thought, but said nothing out loud. The conversation smoothly shifted to other topics. Now Thabo and Ayama were in the spotlight. After some time, the waiter started bringing the ordered dishes. There was a lot of food, and it smelled more than delicious. A modest plate of rice was placed in front of Zuri, and she began to eat it slowly. Sefu couldn't hide his affection as he watched her. Kofi saw that his friend had won the favor of their potential partner. Could he say the same about himself? Kofi didn't know. Sometimes it seemed to him that Juma looked at him with suspicion. The reason was, of course, Ayana, who kept giving Kofi ambiguous looks. Zuri noticed this too, but chose to remain silent. Finally, the conversation turned to the future joint project. Thabo and Kofi took turns telling Juma about their working methods, their ideas, and the innovations they plan to introduce. "This all sounds wonderful," remarked Sefu, "and I like both of you. I'm almost ready to sign a contract with you." Kofi and Thabo exchanged victorious glances. "However, my reputation is of utmost importance to me. I will never get involved with a company if I find out it has been involved in anything dirty. Can you guarantee me that my honor will remain intact and my dignity untainted if I start working with you?" Thabo hastily swallowed his food and nodded. "Of course, we guarantee you that." Sefu turned his gaze to Kofi. "Yes, we have never allowed ourselves to act dishonestly towards anyone," he confirmed. "What little angels," remarked Ayana. Sefu was about to say something, but at that moment, Zuri rose from her seat. "What's wrong, dear?" Kofi asked, alarmed. Zuri looked at him coldly and hostilely. "Are you sure you told Mr. Juma the truth? She asked rather harshly. Kofi was confused. What are you talking about? He asked. The table fell very quiet. I'm talking about the fact that you haven't always been honest with everyone you've dealt with, Zuri said clearly. Kofi looked at her, not believing what was happening. Who did I deceive? He barely managed to say. My father, the girl replied. A few years ago, your company decided to implement a new project and found a suitable location in the city center. But there was one small obstacle in your way, a little house where my family lived. And you decided to simply demolish it. A deadly silence hung over the table. Sefu Juma stared intently at Kofi. Is this true, Mr. Adamako? He asked sternly. Kofi turned pale, and sweat appeared on his forehead. I don't know anything about this, he muttered. That's a lie, exclaimed Zuri. You are the head of the company. You must know everything that happens in it. But I seriously know nothing. I always personally checked the place where construction was planned. You're lying, Zuri shouted. Tears welled up in her eyes, and grabbing her purse, she ran away from the table. Kofi wanted to catch up with her, but Thabo managed to hold him by the sleeve. Wait, brother, he said. Kofi stopped, looking at Thabo. I don't know anything about any demolished house, he repeated, looking his friend in the eye. But I do, admitted Thabo, lowering his gaze. What? Kofi couldn't believe his ears. It happened 4 years ago. We were planning to build a hotel in the center. You took a short leave then because your mother was ill. I handled everything. Yes, there really was one small house. I offered to buy it, but the owner refused. So I bribed the police. And they forced the family to leave the house, giving them 3 days to pack. This man wanted to go to court, but our lawyers convinced him that it was useless to fight a giant company. We transferred a substantial amount to the owner's account to cover the costs of acquiring a new home. And after a while, I completely forgot about this incident. Kofi looked at Thabo with wide, horrified eyes. You really did all this and behind my back? How could you, Thabo? I trusted you completely. Without raising his head, Thabo replied, Forgive me, Kofi. I didn't think it was that serious. Sefu Juma began clapping theatrically. Exquisite. What a dramatic scene, two business partners unmasking themselves. Saying this, he stood up and helped Ayana to her feet. Dear gentlemen, I thank you for a wonderful dinner and ask to be excused. We must take our leave. With these words, Sefu and his companion left with dignity. No one thought to stop them. Everything was obvious. Well, I'll be damned, was all Thabo could say, and Ayama sympathetically patted his hand. Thabo, this is absolutely not funny, Kofi said sternly. I'm not sure I'm ready to continue working with you. With that, he got up and also headed for the exit. As Kofi was getting into his car, he felt someone's gaze on him. Looking up, he saw Ayana coyly watching him through the window of a car leaving the parking lot. In response, Kofi just shook his head. He took out his phone and sent Zuri a message. I'm sorry, but I really didn't know about your house. Thabo just told me about his dishonest act now. The reply came almost immediately. I don't believe you, Zuri responded. Kofi had no choice but to go home. He couldn't sleep for a long time and only calmed down when he firmly decided to go to the library the next day to talk to Zuri. He woke up very early. He immediately got up, brushed his teeth, took a shower, and got dressed. There was still plenty of time before the library opened, so Kofi decided to take a walk. He strolled down the street, got a coffee, and drank it anxiously, barely tasting it. Half an hour before the library opened, he was already standing at the entrance. Finally, he saw Zuri. She was walking down the street, lost in her thoughts. She was wearing a short green skirt, a white polo shirt, and the same army boots. Her hair was down, adorned with a green bow clip. Zuri didn't notice Kofi at first, so he had to intercept her to get her attention. Seeing him, the girl was very surprised. What do you want? I thought we said everything to each other yesterday. Kofi tried to take her hand, but Zuri pulled away. I just wanted to apologize again. I'm telling the truth, I knew nothing about your house. Zuri looked at him intently, not saying a word. It doesn't matter anymore, she finally said, trying to walk past Kofi, but he didn't let her pass. Wait a minute. I want to make amends. You already did that yesterday. The money you transferred for the dress, shoes, and bag, I gave to my parents. Kofi nodded. Now he understood why Zuri came in her regular clothes. But I don't want you to hold a grudge against me, Kofi exclaimed desperately. He didn't know why it was so important to him. The deal with Sefu Juma had fallen through, so he no longer needed a bride. However, something inside resisted the thought of letting Zuri go forever. I'm not holding a grudge, the girl replied dryly. Then prove it, Kofi smiled. Let me take you to dinner. Another one. Zuri responded skeptically. Kofi finally managed to take her hand. Yes, but this time we'll be alone, and it will be a date, he said firmly and resolutely. Zuri's eyebrows shot up in surprise. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. But why would a wealthy businessman invite an ordinary girl on a date? Kofi leaned close to Zuri's ear. Maybe because he simply likes her. Zuri smiled at these words. All right, I'll give you another chance, she said, and skillfully slipped away, disappearing behind the heavy library door. Kofi went home. After changing, he went to the office, where he reserved a table at a restaurant and ordered roses to be delivered directly to the library. Then there was a knock at the door. Come in, Kofi shouted. Thabo entered the office, still visibly embarrassed. Kofi, I'm sorry for what I did behind your back. Now I understand that I cast a shadow over our entire company. Good that you understand. Otherwise I thought something was wrong with your brain, Kofi grumbled. I swear I'll never do that again, Thabo said. Please forgive me. I'll think about it, his business partner replied. He was still angry at his friend. After Thabo left, Kofi received a message from an unknown number. You've become quite something. I'd love to see you, the man read. At the bottom he saw the signature Ayana. So she wanted to see him. At any other moment, Kofi would have felt triumphant, but remembering Zuri's gentle blue eyes, he took his phone and typed a reply. I think Sefu wouldn't be pleased. After sending the message, he blocked Ayana's number and focused on his work. At exactly 6, he closed his laptop and went home to change and get ready. At 7, he was at the library door. When Zuri appeared, he didn't recognize her at first. She wore a long golden dress and high heels, and her hair was beautifully curled and pinned up. When did she have time for that? Kofi wondered. You look amazing, he said out loud. Thanks for the roses, the girl replied. Zuri took Kofi by the arm, and they walked to his car. He took her to a small restaurant with books on the shelves, and they had a wonderful quiet evening at a cozy table. The young people talked about various things, reminiscing about childhood, sharing their hobbies, and discussing favorite stories. It turned out they had a lot in common. By the end of the evening, Kofi was completely enchanted by Zuri, and the girl finally believed that the man had nothing to do with the matter concerning her home. The young couple began seeing each other almost every day, and after some time, they realized they couldn't live without each other. They fell in love, and soon Kofi proposed to Zuri. A few months later, they got married and went on their honeymoon. Since both loved books, they decided to travel to different countries where famous writers had lived and visit the places they once frequented. The trip was successful and brought the young couple even closer. Now they knew almost everything about each other and loved each other with all their virtues and flaws. After returning from their honeymoon, Zuri immediately moved into her husband's apartment, and in the evenings they would sit together on the couch and read books. It was a quiet time filled with love and happiness. Success is not just about material wealth or social status, it's about living with integrity, honesty, and building meaningful relationships. True fulfillment comes from making ethical choices and treating others with love and respect. Lord, guide us to pursue our dreams with integrity and help us to value what truly matters in life. Amen.